Okay, let's talk about unit testing with Chai and Mocha. So Mocha is a testing library that you can use to make sure you've written your functions properly within your code. Chai is an assertion library. So the two of these work together. You've got Mocha, which sets up the tests, provides a framework for the tests, and then Chai, which has a couple of different things. There's assert, expect, and should. There's three different versions that you can use. And they basically do things like what we have here. Assert array is array. Assert dot is okay. And then you can check to see if this thing is true or false. We'll go through a whole bunch of these methods. But assertions are the individual little tests. So you've run a function, you've got a value back, and you want to be able to test whether or not that value is what you expected. Did I get an array? Did I get an object? Does the object have the right properties? Is the number that I got back the right value? Is it too high, too low? All these types of things are controlled by the assertion library. Mocha is the framework for the test. So I have here a project that I've set up. Basically, right now it's just a folder with a couple of files. I have my main app.js file. This is just my project. So it's a killer robot that I've built. There's a function called robot. It's got some properties for speed, max speed, ammo, and phrases that the robot can say. Then there's a function called talk, which will randomly pick one of these phrases. There's fire cannon, which is going to reduce the amount of ammo by 50, fire off 50 shots. Accelerate and decelerate for speeding up and slowing down. And at the bottom here, very important, working with Node, I'm exporting robot, which is an instance of my robot object. So that's my script file that I'm trying to test. Now, with Mocha, we need to create a folder called test. And I already have that created. So if I look here, the listing, I have a folder called test, and I've got my script that I want to test. I can have multiple scripts in here. I can create a test file for each one of them. I can create another folder and have more scripts inside there, and then inside the test folder, I'd create matching folders where those other scripts are located. So if I had a folder up at the top level called X, inside of test, I would have a folder called X with testing scripts inside there to mirror the actual scripts. Okay, so that's what we have. And our testing file, this is really all we're going to do. We're going to require Chai, and we're going to require its assert property. So that assert object is going to be put into this variable, and then this is my JavaScript file. It's up one level, and then it's called app.js. I don't need the .js part. So I'm requiring these two files to be used when I'm writing my tests. Just in the comments here, I'm going to save this file as a code but just in the comments, I've got a link to the Chai assert page, and I've listed off, this isn't the entire list, I've listed off here probably about 2/3 of the methods that are available to us. These are the types of things that we can check. So if you've got regular expressions that you want to test, match or not match, if you have an object being returned and you want to find out, hey, the thing being returned, that object, does it have any of these keys? Does it have all of these keys or only these keys? Does it contain some of the keys that I'm testing here? What's the length of the array? What do I have something in the array that matches, or my return value, does it exist within this array of values? Is number, is string, is array, is object, and so on. So these are all of the methods that are available to us through our assert property that we're going to be using here. So this assert will be able to call on any one of these methods. All right, so let's set up our project folder so that we can actually use this. Mocha and Chai are both packages that we're going to bring into here using npm. So from my folder, I'm inside this root folder where app.js is. I'm going to set up npm init, take my default values. All right, boom, there we go. I now have a package.json file set up. Take a look at it here, and that's good. Now I want to bring in Chai and Mocha, and I want to save them as development dependencies. So we use npm install Mocha space Chai, just list them like that. And then we're going to say save dev, because we want them listed inside of our package.json file. There we go. Right here we can see that they did appear. It says that they were installed, and right here, there they are listed as dependencies. Okay. One last thing. This test directory was set up for us, so it's pointing to here. And in here, what we're going to do is we're going to replace this test. We don't want that. We don't want that default. We're going to say we're going to run Mocha. And, well, I'll just leave it for that now. We're going to make one modification to it, but I'll leave it as this for now. Okay, so we have our script. We've got our test script. We're requiring Chai, Assert, and we're requiring the script file that we're testing. All right, now, the basic way that Mocha runs and its tests are set up is we call a method called describe. And then inside of this, there's going to be a function. There's a label and a function. And then inside the function, we're going to run individual tests. So describe is kind of like a grouping. So let's call this our field test for Killer Robot. That's the label for our group of tests. And function, this is the actual test itself. Okay. Inside here, every time we want to run a test, we're going to do it. We're going to call the it method. And it, like this, takes two arguments. The first one is a description of what your test is going to be, and then a function where you will run your test. And it's inside here, assert is used. And then assert gives us back a yes, no, whether or not the test worked. And then Mocha takes the result of all of the tests that we're going to run. So I've got one here, I could do another and another. Mocha is going to consider each of these to be an individual test, and it's going to say, hey, you passed one, you failed one, you passed two, you failed one, or you passed all three, which ideally is what you want to get. Let's just, for the sake of argument, say I'm going to create a variable called num, and I'll set it equal to 6, and let a string equal to that. Okay, so we have a couple of values that we want to test. I'm going to remove this extra one, and inside here I'm going to run two tests. This one is check that num is numeric. Simple enough. So we would say assert, which is our variable from up top here, dot is number. That's one of the methods you can see up in the comments here or on the Chai website. It takes in a value, num. So this variable right here is what we're testing. And then for our second test, we're going to check that str is a string. Assert dot is string str. There we go. All right, saved. So we have our package JSON file set up. We've got our Chai included, Mocha's included, and in our package.json we said that test is going to run something called Mocha. We can trigger that by saying npm run test. And that's what this scripts folder is. Everything that you list inside here is something where you can do npm run and then the name of whatever you put here. So when I run this, it's going to be running Mocha. Mocha is going to be looking for the directory called test. And there we go. So field test for Killer Robot, that was, go back to our test. That was the describe, so that's the label around everything. And then two green check marks next to are two it. These are the tests. Two passing. So both of these passed. to fail something, let's say this is Boolean. Okay, I'm going to run this again. Let's clear that out and run the test again. Okay, here we are. So, one passed, one failed. The assertion error was it expected this to be a Boolean because we called the isBoolean method. So we're getting back a message explaining to us what's going on. Now, all this stuff down here, this is the script failing. We don't necessarily want to see this happening, so we're going to come in to our package.json and we're going to make an update. We're going to say Mocha or true. And what that's going to do is when we run this again, there we go. We don't get all of these NPM errors showing up. It just, hey, yeah, one passed, one failed, and the details about what it failed without getting the NPM errors. So this is going to be an edit that you want to make to your package.json just to clean things up, make it easier to read. Okay, we'll clear this out. Now let's actually get into testing a real script. Not that my script is a huge or complicated one. I'm going to delete all that. We've got this robot object, and down at the bottom, module exports robot. That's going to be coming back to us. So that's R. We will say in here, let robot equal R. Okay, this is our robot that we're going to use. And our first test is check that robot talks strings. So we want to find out if the function talk returns a string to us. So assert is string, and then robot.talk. This is the method we're calling, and we want to make sure that that is a string. All right, save it. Run the test. All right, cool. So this was from the actual script itself. This is what the robot said. I took your job. Okay, great. Check that robot talks strings. One passed. Fantastic. Now, you will have lots and lots and lots of these tests. I mean, I cannot stress how many you're going to have. There will be line after line after line of these tests. And sometimes you want to run the test, but you don't want to run all of the tests. So there is something in here where you can say, hey, you know, this is the only test that I want to run. Or I can say skip. If I do that, and then I add another one, let's say I'm going to check that robot uses allowed phrases. Okay, so I have in my script, I know that there's an array called phrases. That'll be robot.phrases, and when the robot talks, it's only supposed to be using phrases from that array. So let's check to see if that is true. So assert one of, and we want to, we'll let phrase equal robot.talk. So this is the result of that function. This is probably a better way to do it. Create a variable, run your function, get the result of that function, and then put it inside of here. Phrase, and we're going to check that it is one of an array. Now I can write out the array with all the values here, but I don't want to do that. I want to save myself a little bit of time, so I'm just going to go to the robot.phrases property, which is an array. Okay, so we've said to skip this test and run this one. There we go. So this one, check that the robot uses allowed phrases. That worked. The phrase that came back was from the list, so that one passed. And then this one was skipped. That's the one pending test. So this is an easy way that you can jump over tests that you're not using. Now, I have here run just one test. My array of phrases, there's about 4 phrases inside there, so maybe I want to run this test a whole bunch of times. So we can create a for loop. Nothing wrong with doing multiple asserts within our test. So I is less than, let's say, 8. I plus plus, there we go, and there we are, put that inside of our loop. Okay, run our test again. There we go. So we ran 8 tests, and every single one of them, it used the allowed phrases. So we're all good to go here. All right, let's try another test. Let's jump down and test the shoot right here, the fire cannon method. So the robot has 200 ammo, and I'm going to say that every time it fires its cannon, 50 shells are fired off. So I should really only be able to fire 4 times. Now it's something that I haven't handled in this code. It wasn't something I was thinking of when I wrote the code, we'll say. Come back in here. Make sure robot has ammo to fire. So in our function, we're going to run through a loop and shoot the cannon off, fire the cannon. So I'll say let I equals 0. Oh, that's a 1, we can't do that. And I is going to be less than 5. So we get 5 shots, I plus plus. And each time inside here, we're going to have the robot fire its cannon. Great, 50 shots are fired off 5 times. Now, the result of firing the cannon is that its ammo property should be reduced by 50. And we want to make sure that that property never gets below 50. It doesn't make sense for it to still fire after it has no ammo. So, let's do an assert. And with our assert, we're going to check to see that the number is at least. So robot.ammo is at least 0 after firing the cannon. So let's check this and see if this passes. We're firing 5 times, and then each time we're firing, we're checking to see if the ammo is at least 0. We're not a negative number. Or we could say 1. There's at least 1 bullet left, but 0 works great for what we're doing here, I think. So clear that off, run the test again. Okay. 1 passed, 1 pending, 1 failing. So there's our pending. Here's our pass, because it passed before. And this is our failing. Expected negative 50 to be at least 0. So the expected was greater than the actual. Negative 50 was the actual, and 0 was the expected. 0 or greater. So we failed the test, and this is a good thing. We want to see failures of these tests because we want to be able to go back into our code and say, hey, you know what? This is something that we didn't think of. This is something that we really should handle. So before we do anything in here, we should check to see, if this dot ammo is greater than 50, or greater than or equal to 50, we do that. Else, and then down here we'll say console.log pew pew, and we need to know how many shots are left, and that's going to be the number that is fired. There we go, that's going to be what we write out. So we need to calculate num, and we'll say let num equal this dot ammo. We write that number out, and then this dot ammo minus equal num. So we remove that, and then return this value. Okay, so if it's greater than or equal to 50, otherwise this. But, you know, we should really handle that zero case as well. So let's throw an extra else if in here. And we're going to say if this dot ammo equals 0, console.log, no ammo left. There we go. So, because we failed the test, we're able to come back in here and solve a problem. So let's jump back to our test, and I'm going to skip over this one because I don't want to see all those phrases showing up. So I'm skipping 2 tests now. Really, it's only the ammo one that's left that I care about at this point. There we go. So 50, 50, 50, no ammo left. And we passed our test. So we've solved our problem by running the tests. And this is what we want to do with Mocha and Chai. We're going to test the scripts. We want to test all the functions. We want to make sure that the values that come back from those functions make sense. We want to run tests that are going to fail. That's how you put out code that's ready for use in the real world. All right. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Make sure you go and check out the Mocha website, the Chai website. I'll leave links to both in the comments, and I will leave a copy of a code gist for both the app.js and app.test.js for you guys in the comments. Thanks a lot.